Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and Pokemon fans of the world, it is MegaCrasher coming at you guys with a pro level of hype, and we are back again once again with a brand new video. And in this video, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to be doing our next Pokemon competitive review slash guide on Nidoqueen. Now, before we go any further with this video, if you guys enjoy this video, and plus if you guys like Nidoqueen, now that is a reason by itself to smash the hell out of the like button. Let's see if we can aim for 10 likes here for this video. With that being said, let's do this! Woo! Alright guys, so when it comes to Nidoqueen, it is a very unique Pokemon. So, what makes it so unique, you guys are probably asking? Well, how about the fact that it's got ground and poison? Now, aside from Nidoking, this is the only Pokemon that shares this ground and poison typing, okay? Like, it is so rare. Like, Nidoqueen and Nidoking are the only Pokemon that have access to this typing. Just a little bit of on-the-spot trivia there for you. So, when it comes to the ground and poison typing, it really has some interesting dynamics. So first things first, you have an immunity to electric, you have a 4 times resistance to poison, and you also resist the likes of bug, fairy, fighting, and rock. Now, also something that's interesting about this typing is that because of its partial poison typing, you can actually switch in to Toxic Spikes, have no damage whatsoever, and actually absorb away those Toxic Spikes, permanently removing them from the field, which is actually really incredible. And because it resists rock-type moves, that means it's going to resist Stealth Rocks, which means it's not going to take that much damage from Stealth Rocks, making it one of, in my opinion, the best lower-tier Pokemon ever. So, with that being said, that's kind of where the bad news ends, because we take a look at its weaknesses. It has 4 very, very, very common weaknesses to the likes of ground, ice, psychic, and water. Those are very, very common offensive types, so you got to watch out for those, okay? Now, we then take a look at the abilities. The first ability it gets is known as Poison Point. Now, Poison Point, don't get me wrong, by itself is a good ability, but I'm just going to say straight up right now, you want to ignore these 2 abilities and go for sheer force, but I'm going to explain what Poison Point does. So, Poison Point is an ability that if you were to, say if your opponent was to use a contact move against you, they have a 30% chance of actually having poison inflicted on them, which is actually pretty interesting, and kind of makes it so that this Pokemon is a bit more of a, a contact move deterrent, you know what I'm saying? Now, the next ability, that you end up getting is known as Rivalry. Now, Rivalry is a very situational kind of ability, because what ends up happening here is that the power of the moves that you use end up getting boosted by 25% if you were to use it against a Pokemon of the same gender, but it would actually be reduced by 25% if you were to use moves against those of an opposite gender. And if you face off against genderless Pokemon, well, Rivalry has absolutely no effect, right? So, it's an interesting ability. I see where they were going with it. It's really interesting, but here's the thing, guys. Sheer force. Yes, 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 freaking yes. This thing has sheer force. Now, sheer force is, oh my god, where do I even begin with an ability like this? Seriously, guys. So, what sheer force does is it removes the secondary effects of moves, but in return, gives you a 33% boost in the power of those moves. So say, for example, okay, say if you're using something like Ice Beam, which has a 10% chance to freeze your opponents, well, here's the thing. You're no longer going to have the chance to freeze your opponents, but you end up getting an amazing boost in that move's power because of sheer force. Now, something else that's really, really interesting is that I'm not really sure if this was intentional, if this was either, a bug that they didn't bother fixing or, whatever, but if you actually end up holding a Life Orb with Sheer Force and you use Sheer Force boosted moves, you get 0 recoil, which is absolutely amazing. Now, keep in mind is that the only way that you won't get recoil is if you were to use Sheer Force boosted moves. If you use something like, say, Earthquake or something like that, which has no secondary effects, it does get boosted by Sheer Force, it does get boosted by Life Orb, but you get that 10% HP recoil. So that's just a little something I wanted to throw in there as well. So we then take a look at the stats. The stats are absolutely, I love these stats, okay? So we got 90 on the HP, 92 on the attack, 87 on the defense, 75 on the special attack, 85 on the special defense, and 76 on the speed. So this Pokemon right here has a very nice balance when it comes to its stats. Like, obviously, its attack being the highest and its special attack being the lowest. Now, funny enough is that, you know, when it comes to Nidoqueen, you're most likely going to want to use its special attack, given the fact that it's got a crap ton of special moves. Now, here's the thing also, is that even though special attacking Nidoqueen is more common than anything else, you can actually use its base 92 attack. It's actually pretty usable, so we're going to do the best we can to see if we can make use of that base 92 attack, because we're definitely going to be making use of that base 75 special attack for sure. So, with that being said, let's navigate our way to Pokemon Showdown, and let me show you some sets that I got for you. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, so now that we are here on Pokemon Showdown, let's go into detail with some of these sets I have for you. So, the first set that I have for you, I just want to make a disclaimer to say that all of these sets are interchangeable, okay? This Pokemon has a very wide and very deep move pool, so basically, you know, if you are missing, say, like fire type coverage, ice type coverage, ground type, poison type, things like that, you know, this Pokemon can easily fill in the holes on your team when it comes to offensive moves. Now, here's the thing also, is that I want to, you know, bring your guys' attention to Sheer Force here. I said earlier in the video that Sheer Force boosts the power of moves with a secondary effect by 33%. I want to make a correction on that. It's 30%, not 33%. I slipped up. I apologize for that. So hopefully you guys understand the correction of this ability right here. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, now that we got that out of the way, let's go ahead and let's get into the details here of the set. So, here's the thing, is that the best move, the best item to use would happen to be Life Orb. Now, what Life Orb does is it boosts the power of your moves by 30% at the cost of 10% of your health, but here's the thing, with Sheer Force intact and with moves that are Sheer Force boosted, the recoil doesn't matter. The recoil is not going to happen. So, you know, you're going to end up reaping the benefits to the fullest when it comes to the use of Life Orb. So, with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, the ability, we're just going to be going for Sheer Force for all of these Nidoqueen sets. So this is the last time we're going to talk about Sheer Force in regards to the ability that we're going to be using for Nidoqueen. So, with that being said, the first move that we got, it is going to be that of Stealth Rocks, because this is such an amazing move to utilize on Nidoqueen, okay? Like, this Pokemon, you know, it can tank hits, it can set up entry hazards, it can, you know, just give massive amounts of damage, like, with its abilities, with its items, and all that stuff. So, Stealth Rock is definitely a move that you want to use, because here's the thing, is that this Pokemon is very threatening as a sweeper. So say if the opponent was to lead with a Pokemon that is majorly weak to the likes of Nidoqueen, then that Pokemon will be pressured to switch out, and if that happens, if you predict the switch, then you can easily set up Stealth Rocks right there. So, I mean, that right there is just something to keep in mind. So the first move that we got is known as Earth Power. Yeah, the fact that this is stab as well just makes it like 10 times more powerful. I wouldn't say 10 times more powerful, but you guys get the idea. Earth Power, you know, base 90 power, it is stab, and factor in the Life Orb and Sheer Force boost, like, it just becomes a crazy, crazy powerful move, okay? Now, the next move that we got is going to be Ice Beam. Now, Ice Beam is a very, very good move to have on this Pokemon right here, because it allows for you to have coverage against the likes of dragons, flying, grass, and ground as well. So, I mean, you know, if you happen to be against a ground-type Pokemon, then you can go for Ice Beam, and you can have a really good chance at taking them out, depending, of course, on the investment of that ground Pokemon that you're facing against, right? So, last but not least, I decided to chuck in Flamethrower in there. Now, this right here is just for, like, extra coverage against the likes of Steel and Grass and Bug and all that stuff. Now, you can easily, okay, I say you can very easily, like, swap out Flamethrower if you want. Like, if you want to have something like, let's just see right here, if you want to have something like, say, Thunderbolt, you know, you want to have coverage against Water-type Pokemon as well as flying, and you can do that as well. Now, also, I want to make a mention that this move, Toxic Spikes, is definitely a move to consider, because not only does it allow for you to have a wider range of entry hazards to set up against your opponents, but here's the thing, is that Toxic Spikes actually poisons grounded Pokemon and non-poison and non-steel Pokemon, so this actually allows for there to be even more pressure against the opponents when it comes to switching in and switching out and all that stuff. And if you were to set up 2 layers of Toxic Spikes, then they're inflicted with bad poisoning, whereas if you end up setting up just the 1 layer, then it becomes, you know, just regular poison damage that doesn't progress as the game goes on. But either way, you know, that move is really good to use. You can also use something like Taunt to, you know, to shut down slower Pokemon that try to set up against you, whether it's entry hazards, whether it's stat setups, things like that. Taunt is definitely a good move to consider in place of Flamethrower if you want. But this right here, you know, this is just an idea as to what you can utilize for a set like this. You know, a fast special sweeper / entry hazard user. So we have ourselves a Timid Nature going on, which is going to lower the attack and increase the speed. Now, the investment is very basic, very straightforward. We have 252 EVs into the special attack, 4 into the special defense, and 252 into the speed. And you take a look, it's got 276 speed, which is pretty respectable. So, I mean, you know, 276 speed is definitely something to not ignore, and, you know, you'd be surprised as to what sort of Pokemon this thing can outspeed, right? So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, let's go ahead and let's move on to the next set I have for you. We're going to be taking more of a defensive approach here in this situation. We got ourselves a bit of speed going on, which I'll get into shortly here. So we're going to be utilizing Black Sludge here in this situation because we need to have some form of recovery, right? And it will restore 1/16 of your health at the end of each turn. And for the ability, once again, gonna be Sheer Force. Should kind of go without saying. Now, we have ourselves Stealth Rocks and Toxic Spikes here because, as I had made mention to, you know, this Pokemon can very easily, you know, set up a wide range of entry hazards. It doesn't get Spikes or Sticky Web or anything like that, so, you know, that's, you know, don't get that twisted. But still, having Toxic Spikes and Stealth Rock access is very, very amazing and can definitely screw with your opponents, especially, like, if they are weak to Stealth Rocks or, you know, don't have any way of clearing entry hazards. It's going to be really annoying for your opponent to deal with. So, we got Stealth Rocks to deal Rock-type damage whenever the opponent switches in. We got Toxic Spikes to poison grounded Pokemon and, you know, non-poison or non-steel Pokemon. We also have ourselves Earth Power, because you need to have that stab, right? You definitely got to have that stab. So, that way, ladies and gentlemen, you know, you will be able to deal a respectable amount of damage, even though we're not running any investment. We have ourselves Sheer Force boosting Earth Power, which is going to hurt quite a bit for a defensive Pokemon. And last but not least, we have ourselves Ice Beam, because here's the thing, is that ground and ice type moves combined, they have really good type coverage, you know, for one another. So, with that being said, let's go ahead and let's move on to the investment. So we're going to be running a Bold Nature here, so that way, ladies and gentlemen, you will be increasing your defense that much further at the cost of your attack. We're not going to worry about attack here. So, we have ourselves 248 EVs into the HP, we have ourselves 128 into the defense, and 132 into the speed. Now, this is a very specific spread right here, because if you're using this Pokemon in, say, OU, you want to be able to have enough speed to outpace defensive Landorus. Now, Landorus, you know, does run speed because, you know, of the fact that the metagame changes. So, you know, if you want to be able to, you know, speed creep and be able to outspeed, well then, you know, maybe you can take out a little bit of HP, put it into the defense if you want, or I should say into the speed if you want, you know, just to kind of mix and match and, you know, get some craziness going and all that stuff. But that right there is just kind of like an idea of a defensive set for Nidoqueen. So, I mean, if you want to go full on, you know, bulky support, like bulky, speedy support, then you could go for something like this, you know, just put in max HP and max speed and have it, say, be a Timid Nature. So, that way, you know for a fact that you'll most likely run, like, outpace defensive Landorus and be able to knock it out with an Ice Beam, which is just going to be absolutely incredible. But you don't often see this Pokemon in the OU tier. I mean, this is a RU Pokemon, I believe. So here's the thing, is that if you were to use Nidoqueen in OU, it's not necessarily a bad Pokemon to use, but there are definitely ways around, you know, like using Nidoqueen. Like, if you want to use Nidoqueen, then you definitely got to make your spreads adjusted and according to the OU Pokemon. So, say, for example, like I said, you know, you got defensive Landorus and all that stuff. then you definitely want to be able to have enough speed to outspeed it, you know, and I definitely think that 276 speed might be a bit overkill, so, you know, like I said, if you want to adjust the speed and, you know, like, make it so that you just outpace defensive Landorus, then you can do that as well. You know, put the rest in defense so that you'll be able to take hits a little bit better and all that stuff. So, coming up next, ladies and gentlemen, we actually have ourselves a full-on defensive set right here. We're not going to worry about the speed investment and all this stuff. This Pokemon right here is really good at tanking physical hits, okay? So we're going to be going for Rocky Helmet right here, which is going to be an amazing item to use because it ends up taking away 1/6 of your opponent's health at the end of the turn. Like, if they were to, you know, use a contact move against you, bam, 1/6 their health, gone. Which is absolutely amazing, and when you also factor in Toxic Spikes and Stealth Rock damage, like, this is a Pokemon that's going to wear down physical attackers pretty bloody quickly if they don't know what they're doing, right? So, with that being said, man, I'm sweating even though I have my AC on. But anyways, guys, that's neither here nor there. Let's go ahead and let's move on here. Now, I just want to say also that this set right here, this moveset is the complete same as this moveset right here. Just the difference is, you know, we're not worrying about, you know, speed creeping or anything like that. We're making it so that this Pokemon is full-on defensive, so that way you'll get as much out of it as a defensive Pokemon. So, you know, we have ourselves Ice Beam and Earth Power for, you know, really good type combination, really good type coverage and all that stuff. You know, you gotta have that Earth Power for the stab if you want it. Ice Beam is also, like I said, you know, the move that I would personally recommend, but, you know, it's up to you. You can use something like, I don't know, let's say Fire Blast or Flamethrower. If you want to use something like Sludge Wave, because it does get Sludge Wave. I just want to put that out there. You know, like, I think it's pretty obvious that this Pokemon does get Sludge Wave, but Sludge Wave is only good for fairies and grass types. So if you do happen to have a crippling fairy weakness, like say, if you are running a team that has trouble dealing with fairy-type Pokemon, then Sludge Wave is definitely a good move to use just in general, regardless of how you run your Nidoqueen, whether it's offensive. We go back here for a second. You know, if you want to put in Sludge Wave, then that right there is good as well. So you got Earth Power, Sludge Wave, Flamethrower, really good coverage, although you lose out on Ice-type coverage, so if you want to put in Ice Beam to substitute for something like Flamethrower, then you got that going on as well. You know, bam, bam, and bam. Really good in my opinion. You know, Earth Power and Sludge Wave both are stab, and it's going to deal a hell of a lot of damage because of the fact that it's stab, it's Life Orb, and Sheer Force boosted all around. Now, back to this set right here. We have ourselves a bold nature going on because we want to have as much defense as possible. So we have ourselves 248 EVs on to the HP, 252 on the defense, and 8 on the special attack. Now, pro tip, ladies and gentlemen, is that when it comes to the HP investment, the reason for an odd HP number is so that way you'll have more entry hazard switch-ins. So that's just something to keep in mind as well, although when it comes to Nidoqueen, you really don't have to worry too much about, you know, suffering damage from entry hazards because it absorbs Toxic Spikes. It, you know, doesn't have an immunity to Stealth Rocks, but it takes very little damage from Stealth Rocks, whereas the only entry hazard that you gotta worry about per se would be something like Spikes when it comes to, you know, all-out damage and all that stuff. So, I mean, that's just something to keep in mind as well, but if you're not worried about that, then, you know, just then go full balls to the walls and just, you know, add in 252 EVs on the HP and, you know, just not even worry about it, you know? But, you know, I definitely do like the odd number because, you know, that's just me, right? And plus, more entry hazard switch-ins, always never a bad thing, right? So, last but not least, ladies and gentlemen, I wanted to take a different approach right here. I wanted to make it so that this Pokemon has a usable physical set right here. Now, what we got going on here, we have ourselves Life Orb as obviously the item of choice. Now, here's the thing, is that I meant to put in Sheer Force, so ignore, you know, Poison Point. Don't use Poison Point in this set. You want Sheer Force to the fullest. And with that being said, let's go ahead and let's go into the moves right here. So we have ourselves Poison Jab for that 30% chance to poison, but, you know, thanks to Sheer Force, you don't have a chance to poison, but you get a 30% boost in the power plus Life Orb plus stab. Ooh, damn, son. That's what I'm talking about. We have ourselves Ice Punch for that good Ice-type coverage. We got Fire Punch for that Fire-type coverage, and it's just gonna be absolutely, it's gonna hurt, okay? And last but not least, we have ourselves Rock Slide because we're going full Sheer Force boosted moves. Now, here's the thing, is that if you are not concerned about having Life Orb recoil dealt against you, then you can go for something like Earthquake, because Earthquake is stab, and it hits a ton of crap for a ton of, like, super effective damage, you know? Electric types, goodbye, rock type, steel type, fire type, all that stuff, right? Now, my recommendation is you definitely want to keep Rock Slide, okay? So if you want to replace something like, say, Ice Punch or Fire Punch with Rock Slide, hell, you know, if you're not worried about, you know, having not poison coverage, like if you're not worried about taking away poison coverage, then you can put in Rock Slide in place of Poison Jab if you want, right? So, with that being said, we're going to be rocking a Jolly Nature, max speed, max attack, you know, no nonsense, straight up in your face, and you just pummel the hell out of whatever's in front of you kind of thing, right? So, with that being said, that's basically it. Now, before we close out this video, I want to showcase you guys just all of the moves that it gets. Like, the type coverage is crazy. Look at this. Like, you know, you got Aqua Tail, you got Avalanche, Body Slam, Brick Break, Crunch. Like, the list goes on. Dragon Pulse, Dragon Tail. Like, this is ridiculous, you know? Like, Outrage, Power Up Punch. Like, that is absolutely crazy, you know? Shadow Ball, Shadow Claw. Oh! Something I want to mention here, ladies and gentlemen, is that Shadow Ball is actually a really good move to utilize because of the fact that it has a 20% chance to lower the opponent's special defense by 1 stage. But see, here's the thing, is that Sheer Force ends up boosting that move and actually becomes just that much more powerful. Although, here's the thing, is that, you know, you definitely got to try to find a way to slot in Shadow Ball, because here's the thing, is that you don't want to take away that glorious coverage that ends up, you know, giving you, like, your more bang for your buck, you know? When it comes to Shadow Ball, you're only going to be targeting Psychic and Ghost-type Pokemon, you know? That's two types right there that, you know, it's almost not even worth, you know, putting in, but, you know, you can if you want. But, you know, having moves with really, really good type coverage, like Ice Beam, Flamethrower, Thunderbolt, Sludge Wave, Earth Power, you know, that's also really good as well. So we also have ourselves Focus Blast. You can put that in as well if you really want to be ballsy, you know? So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, that's basically going to be it here for this video. Also want to point out that this Pokemon does get Sucker Punch as well. So if you want to put that in, say, a physical set right here, so if you want Sucker Punch, then you can do something like that. And not to mention, you know, Sucker Punch is a priority move, so if the opponent was to, say, use an attacking move on you, Sucker Punch is going to go first, and wham! And that right there could be the difference between a win and a loss. So, with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, that's going to be it here for this video. So, I certainly hope you guys enjoyed it. And if you guys did, please be sure to leave this video a thumbs up. And I apologize if I've been sweating all over the place, man. It is absolutely hot. Plus, I also did just get back from the gym a little while ago, so I still could be sweating because of that. And with that said, thanks again for watching. And I'll see you next upload.